What he wears is none of your damn business. Liam, let's be real. If you weren't a Hamilton, do you think I ever would have been your girlfriend? You've been kicked out of the family. You really think I'm going to stick around? Don't make me laugh. The handbag Chad just bought me is worth more than you'll make in a year. You think you're even worthy of me? Get lost, and don't ever show your face around me again. You're disgusting. Liam stepped out of the cramped apartment building, fumbling to light his cigarette. It was spring, but beads of sweat dotted his forehead. 15 years ago, the Hamiltons' only son, Jason, had gone missing. Liam, a 7-year-old in foster care, who happened to be the same height, was taken in to fill the void. For 15 years, he had been the perfect son, diligent, obedient, and a stellar student. His natural aptitude had gotten him into Columbia, and after graduating, he had taken the reins of Hamilton Industries. In just 2 years, he had propelled the family company into one of New York City's top 100 private firms. But the moment the real Jason Hamilton returned, Liam, the replacement, was cast aside. His 3 adoptive sisters grew weary and distant. Control of the company was transferred entirely to Jason's name. He didn't even want their money. The Hamiltons had raised him, and he'd repaid that debt with his hard work. What happened to the company now was none of his concern. Still, he couldn't believe that 15 years of dedication hadn't earned him a shred of trust. You'd show more compassion to a stray dog. They had wrung him dry and then tossed him out with a cold, ruthless finality. What he hadn't expected was that his girlfriend of 3 years had only been with him for the Hamilton name. The pain had finally given way to a dull, chilling numbness. For 3 years, he had given Jessica everything she'd ever wanted, anything he could afford, and it was all a lie. Liam took a drag from the cigarette and choked, a dry cough racking his chest. He threw the butt to the ground and crushed it under his shoe. Staring at the mangled filter, he let out a bitter, self-mocking laugh. Of course, some things just weren't meant for him, no matter how hard he tried. Boom! A clap of thunder startled him. It was about to rain. In 2 days, his entire life had been upended. Was the universe itself trying to kick him while he was down? He sighed, the sound lost in the wind, and hurried away from the apartment complex. It didn't matter anymore. When he had walked out of the Hamilton mansion, his past was wiped clean. For the first time, he was free. All those years, leading the company, navigating the treacherous world of corporate warfare, had left him exhausted. For the rest of his life, he figured he'd find a simple job as a security guard. Just coast, exist, and wait for the end. He'd already ridden the highs and lows. Maybe just lying flat was the most comfortable way to live. He was still muttering to himself when the sky opened up. The downpour was torrential, mixed with a roar of thunder. Head down against the deluge. He cut through a narrow back alley, and that's when he heard it. A strange, muffled whimper from a dark corner up ahead. NGH. It was followed by a man's sleazy chuckle. Looks like Tiffany wasn't lying. That stuff works. Fast. Cassandra Thorne. See, even God is on my side. In a storm this bad, who do you think is going to hear you scream for help? A kidnapping. Liam's senses went on high alert. He peered around the corner of the brick wall. Next to a dumpster at the end of the alley sat a black car, its window wide open. Through the sheets of rain, he could make out the form of a woman slumped over the open window. Her hair a mess, her face obscured. Behind her, a slimy-looking young man was reaching for her. The next second, the woman's head tilted through a gap in her scattered hair. Her eyes, sharp and fierce, locked directly onto his. Instantaneously, a chill shot up Liam's spine. It was as if that gaze had pierced straight through him. He froze, rooted to the spot, his mind blank. He recognized the car. It was a vintage black Bentley, a rare sight even in New York. You didn't need to be a genius to know that whoever owned a car like that was not someone to be trifled with. After everything that had happened, the last thing Liam wanted was to get involved in someone else's mess. He averted his eyes, breaking contact with that desperate, pleading gaze. Forget it. Just pretend you didn't see anything. Liam shoved his hands in his pockets and feigning indifference turned to walk away. But in the next instant, crack. A sound like a firecracker exploded, perfectly masked by a simultaneous clap of thunder. In this deserted alley, drowned out by the storm, the noise went unnoticed. But Liam, standing just yards away, heard it clearly. It was a gunshot. He couldn't have been mistaken. He froze for a second, his mind screaming at him to keep walking, to pretend he hadn't heard. But then he felt something cold and hard press into the small of his back. "Get me out of here." The voice was a raw whisper, as if forced through clenched teeth. Mayim's whole body went rigid. He didn't need a look. It was a gun, he realized with a sickening lurch in his stomach. What must have happened to the man in the car? "Where?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Anywhere, just somewhere with no people." The woman's voice was cold, and this time laced with an impatient edge. She jabbed the gun harder into his back. Now Liam gritted his teeth. "Okay," he said, his voice tight. "I know an abandoned warehouse nearby. No one ever goes there. Just don't do anything stupid. I'll take you." He took a deep breath and started walking. The gun barrel felt like it was fused to his spine, pressing into him with every step until they reached the warehouse. After locking the heavy, rusted door behind them, Liam pointed to a dilapidated sofa in the corner, barely visible in the gloom. "You can rest here. I can call the police for you." But the woman behind him didn't seem to hear. The gun was still aimed at him, a silent, deadly threat. "You over there to stay alive." Liam had no choice but to obey. As he approached the sofa, her command came again, sharp and imperious. "Take off your jacket. Put on the sofa." He did as he was told. Once it was done, he thought the ordeal might finally be over. He was wrong. "Sit down," she ordered. Liam fell silent. Was he a hostage now? His luck had truly hit rock bottom, but she had the gun, so he had no choice. As he turned to sit, another flash of lightning illuminated the cavernous space. For a split second, Liam finally saw her face. It was breathtaking. She wore a red evening gown that clung to her stunning figure. In her hand, she held a small, exquisite gold-plated pistol. Her eyes, however, were hazy, unfocused. Liam sucked in sharp breath. The next thing he knew, an intoxicating scent of roses filled the air. Before he could process it, the woman threw herself at him, collapsing into his arms. "You smell so good," she murmured, her voice a drug-laced whisper. The woman was out of her mind. Her hands and mouth moved over him, restless and hungry, her soft moans plucking at his nerves like a deranged melody. Every touch sent a jolt through him. He tensed, every muscle in his body screaming. The gun in her hand kept him from moving. "Hey, just try to hold on," he stammered, his voice strained. "I can call an ambulance." He remembered the man's words about her being drugged, but she gave him no chance to get up. Her slender arms, surprisingly strong, wrapped around him like steel bands, pinning him in place. She whimpered, pressing herself against him as if he were a lifeline. "Look, miss, seriously, let me call for help. This isn't right. We don't even know each other." He pleaded, his mind racing, trying to figure out how to get the gun away from her. She acted as if she couldn't hear him, her free hand fumbling with the buttons of his shirt. Boom! Another crash of thunder. A flash of lightning lit up his body. His shirt was open, revealing his toned, tense skin and the hard lines of his chest. The faint scent of his sweat mingled with his natural musk, a heavy combination that filled her senses. The drug, already coursing through her veins, kicked into overdrive. A spiderweb of red appeared in her cold eyes. Unable to control herself, her hand trembled around the pistol. With the last shred of her sanity, she raised the gun and brought the butt of it down, hard against the back of his head. Crack! Liam didn't even have time to cry out. A sharp, explosive pain shot through his skull. His vision went black, the last sliver of light vanishing into nothingness. Her consciousness was completely consumed by the drug. In the total darkness, she greedily fell upon the one thing that brought her a wave of cool relief. When he came to, The dangerously luring woman was gone. In her place stood another woman dressed head to toe in black. She pushed a pair of glasses up the bridge of her nose and gave a slight nod. Before Liam could make sense of anything, two large, imposing men were walking toward him. The sudden movement sent a fresh wave of agony through his head as if he'd been hit by a truck. His consciousness swam. He felt the men lift him onto a stretcher. His body felt strangely refreshed, almost comfortable except for his lower half, which felt exposed, covered only by a jacket. His head throbbed through a blurry haze. He saw a dark crimson stain on the sofa cushions, and then he knew nothing more. This time when he woke up, it felt like he'd slept for an eternity. Heavy drapes blocked out the light in a lavish, palatial bedroom. Liam blinked, his eyes slowly taking in the surroundings. He was lying on an incredibly soft high-end mattress. His gaze drifted up to the impossibly high ceiling where a massive, ornate chandelier made of pure gold hung. Sheer gauzy curtains were draped from above, tied back elegantly. Where the hell was he? Liam tried to lift a hand to rub his eyes, but it was jerked to a stop. His hands were bound by a silver chain, shackled to the foot of the bed. Shit, he cursed under his breath, panic finally setting in. He tugged, but the only result was the clinking of metal against metal. The next second, the heavy bedroom door creaked open. The sharp click-clack of high heels on marble echoed across the floor, slow yet deliberate, coming closer. Through the veil of the bed curtains, he saw the silhouette of a woman in a tight black dress, her figure flawless. Above a graceful swan-like neck was the same stunning face he'd seen for only a moment. She stopped at the edge of the bed, her nearly 10 centimeters heels giving her an imposing height. She looked down at him, her beautiful almond-shaped eyes narrowed into a predatory squint. "Miss you," his voice came out as a dry rasp. His throat was raw from sleeping so long without water, and the pain forced him to stop. Above him, the woman glanced down with an air of cold disdain. "You're awake." Liam struggled, using his chained arms to push himself into a sitting position. He forced himself to remain calm. He had a pretty good idea of where he was, her home, after being thrown out by the Hamiltons. He'd already lined up a security job. He was supposed to start in a few days. He had no idea how he'd ended up in this mess, but he needed to get out of this place fast. This woman was a psycho, chaining him to a bed like some kind of animal. Recalling the vintage Bentley, the opulent bedroom, and the golden pistol, he knew it was best not to provoke her. He took a deep breath. "Miss, can you please tell me where my phone is? It's getting late. I should get going." He was trying to signal that he would pretend nothing had happened, that he didn't know a thing. But the woman seemed to ignore him. She reached out and swept the curtain aside. With nothing between them, their eyes met. Her face was like a sculpture carved from jade, exquisite and cold. Her full red lips were pressed into a firm line. Her eyes as frosty as a winter morning. Liam prided himself on having seen his fair share of beautiful women. His 3 non-biological sisters were stunning, and his ex Jessica had been the campus queen. But in front of this woman, they were nothing more than handmaidens. He drew in a sharp breath, his mind reeling. He couldn't believe that last night he and she HS before he could recover from the shock. Her long, slender fingers seized his chin. The grip was shockingly strong, forcing his head up to meet her gaze. Her eyes were so cold they could steal the breath from his lungs. She toyed with the chain on his wrist, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. "What's the matter after all that? You still think you can just walk away?" A wave of humiliation washed over him, a grown man being toyed with like this. He hadn't seen a gun, so he didn't dare fight back too hard. He gritted his teeth. "Miss, just give me back my phone. I'll act like yesterday never happened. I've never even met you." He thought he'd made his position perfectly clear. His lips were sealed, but his words seemed to ignite her anger. Her cold eyes blazed with a sudden fire. Her fingers tightened on his chin, and with a sudden, brutal force, she slammed the back of his head against the headboard. Then her voice, laced with ice, cut through the air. Am I not worth remembering? She's a goddamn lunatic. Liam bit down hard on his back teeth, the pain sharp and searing. He'd always kept himself in shape at the gym, but he was weak from lack of food. I swear I won't tell anyone what happened. Yesterday, he said, his voice rising with desperation. Damn it. She grabbed the collar of his tattered shirt, her voice a low, dangerous snarl. Are you that desperate to be rid of me? The fabric pulled tight against his neck, and Liam's own anger flared. I don't even know you. Aren't you afraid? I'll call the cops. At that, the woman laughed. Cold, chilling sound. The cops. She looked down at him, her red lips curling, into a smirk as the fire in her eyes died down. Do you have any idea who I am? Am Cassandra Thorne. The name flashed through his mind. He'd heard it that night in the alley, a name whispered in the rain. All he could connect it to was the Thorne family of New York, a clan so powerful and mysterious that he'd only ever heard whispers of them at the highest level galas he'd attended while working for the Hamiltons. He knew nothing about them, not even who was currently in charge. She was testing him, testing to see if he'd recognized her and if he'd keep his mouth shut. Liam's eyes flickered. He shook his head slowly, his voice a low murmur. Who you are has nothing to do with me. I don't want to. No. His detached response seemed to displease her. She smiled a playful, almost cruel glint in her eyes as she leaned in closer. If you don't know, then I'll tell you. She tugged his collar again, forcing him to meet her gaze. Remember my name? It's Cassandra Thorne. She paused, then added a taunting little flourish. Go on, think about it. How many families in New York have a name Thorne? The Thorne family, the one that was rumored to hold half the country in its grasp. A mysterious dynasty that could move markets and governments with a single phone call. A flicker of shock crossed Liam's face. So you do know. Her eyes instantly turned sharp and hostile. The jig was up. Liam slumped back, a wave of resignation washing over him. So what? If I do, who doesn't matter to me. Like I said yesterday, I was just walking home and got caught in the rain. I've never seen you before in my life. Never seen her. Cassandra's fury was well and truly lit. Last night she had been set up, drugged, and cornered. In her most helpless moment, this man had appeared like a potential savior. But he just turned his back and walked away. It was only by a stroke of luck, the feel of her pistol in her purse, the cold rain shocking her back to some semblance of clarity, that she had escaped. But then the drug had taken over completely, forcing her to, with a complete stranger in a filthy, abandoned warehouse. She wouldn't have set foot in a million years. Afterward, when she finally got a clear look at him, she had felt a sliver of relief. He was handsome with strong features that were at least pleasing to her eye. She had only wanted to ask him one thing. Why didn't you help me? But now she realized he knew who she was from start. And even now, he was doing everything in his power to distance himself from her. Her, the eyes of the Thorne dynasty. Was she that repulsive him? Her entire life, no one had ever dared to ignore her. This man, he was different. Very well. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her lips as she released his collar. What are you doing? Liam watched her, his eyes wide with disbelief. Cassandra's eyes narrowed as her hand began to move. You have a nice body. An understatement, she thought. It's exquisite. That was it. Liam was done being passive. He was a man, and he'd had a girlfriend before, but even Jessica had always been shy and reserved with him. He believed that this kind of thing required consent, a shared desire. He was still furious about what happened yesterday, being dragged into this mess. But waking up, he had tried to let it go. He had nothing left to lose. He'd never experienced anything like this. And the woman was a goddess. In a twisted way, he hadn't lost out. But for it to be over, and now for this to happen again. In this way, had she no shame? Hearing his protest, Cassandra's movements didn't stop. A laugh escaped, her lips devoid of warmth. You're the first person who's ever dared to defy me. Sensing the change in his body, the resistance, Cassandra's smile deepened. Her hand slid lower, her eyes darkening with a predatory gleam. I'm going to make sure you remember me until the day you die. He had slept for so long he would start to lose track of whether he was alive or dead. It felt like at least 2 days since he'd had a drop of water. His lips were as cracked and dry as a desert floor. Even the slightest movement threatened to split them open. His throat was so raw he couldn't make sound. He instinctively went to rub his eyes, and his right hand moved freely too. His face. He jolted, realizing the chains were gone. They had been removed at some point while he slept. A surge of relief washed over him. He scrambled out of bed, his body protesting from hunger, and began to search the room. The damn woman was gone. Liam breathed a sigh of relief and, running on fumes, started looking for a phone or any way to contact the outside world. But the bedroom was massive, and every cabinet and drawer was locked. After 10 minutes of frantic searching, he found nothing. On the bedside table, however, sat a neatly folded set of clean pajamas. She really thinks of everything, doesn't she? Liam looked down his own clothes, now torn and filthy, and changed into the fresh set. He had to find a way out of here, and fast. After years in the business world, he knew that the more powerful the family, the more dangerous their secrets. And this woman was part of that family. He had been tired for 18 years. 18 years of pretending to be someone else's son, of trying to please everyone, only to be thrown out like trash. The one person he thought he could be himself with, his girlfriend, had only been using him for his status. He was done playing the game. For the rest of his life, he just wanted to be himself, to do what he wanted, not be someone else's puppet. He took a deep breath and pulled open the heavy bedroom door. Instantly, a vast, opulent living room spread out before him. It mirrored the bedroom's palatial style, dripping with gold accents. Even the can of laborers on the tables were solid gold. The sheer extravagance was suffocating. But Liam was immune to it now. Knowing she was a thorn, this level of luxury seemed almost pedestrian for her family. He made his way down the long, curving staircase. At the bottom, he finally saw another person. "Sir, you're awake." A woman in a maid's uniform holding a tray with an ornate tea set smiled at him. She looked like the head housekeeper. Liam was too thirsty to respond. He walked straight to the tray, picked up a cup, and downed a tea in one gulp. As the liquid soothed his raw throat, he finally felt grounded, like he was back in his own body. He was alive. "Sir, please drink slowly. There's more," the housekeeper, Maria, said quickly, refilling his cup. It was time for more. Liam set the cup down, his voice urgent. "Hello, can I borrow your phone?" At his question, Maria's eyes flickered. She completely ignored his request and walked toward the grand hall. "Dinner is ready, sir. You may begin whenever you like." Dinner. Liam took a few steps forward and saw it. A long silver dining table laden with an incredible array of dishes, each one a miniature work of art. The aroma wafted over, and after 2 days of starvation, Liam's eyes glazed over. His stomach growled shamelessly. He was so hungry he found himself drifting toward the table, licking his lips and swallowing hard. It smelled incredible. Every scent was a direct assault on his willpower. Seeing him standing there, Maria sat down the tea service and smiled. "Miss Thorne left instructions. She has business tonight and will be back late. You don't need to wait for her." "Her Royal Highness," he thought bitterly, as if I'd wait for her. His reason returned slightly. Just walking out wasn't an option. Through the floor to ceiling windows, he'd already scanned the grounds. It was a massive manicure garden that stretched as far as he could see with no exit in sight. He needed a car, and as hungry as he was now, he'd probably starve to death on the way if he tried to walk. A few bites to get his strength back couldn't hurt. With that, Liam sat down at the table. He was too hungry to care if the food was poisoned. He began to eat, forgoing all manners and devouring everything in sight. He was starving. If it weren't for the expensive, clean pajamas he was wearing, he would have looked like a homeless man who hadn't eaten in weeks. Maria cleared away the plates and bones, a satisfied smile on her face as she watched him. "Liam, practically cleared the table, sampling every one of the dozen or so dishes. Thanks to his dedicated gym routine, his strength began to return as he ate. Wiping his mouth, he finally felt human again. A man with an appetite like yours must be very strong, Maria remarked, pleased as she collected the last of the empty dishes. Liam let out a small burp and patted his stomach, getting back to the matter at hand. Excuse me, could I borrow your phone? I just need to make one call. Maria's expression shifted subtly again. She acted as if she hadn't heard him. Is there something you require, sir? If you tell me, I can arrange it for you. Liam's face fell. He knew then that she had no intention of letting him contact the outside world. He tried a different tack. Look, I don't know your boss. She brought me here yesterday. Just let me use your phone for a minute. That's all I'm asking. Maria just smiled and shook her head. Sir, Miss Thorne has given instructions. You'll be living here from now on. If you need anything, you only need to tell me. It was clear she wasn't going to help him. Arguing was pointless. She was her employee. He was a stranger. Why would she side with him? Liam stood up and headed for the door. Fine, he said, his voice flat. In that case, I'll just see myself out. Maria didn't seem worried. She simply called out after him, a gentle reminder in her tone. Sir, you're currently at the Thorne family's private estate. There is nothing but wilderness for miles around. Private estate. Liam suddenly remembered hearing whispers of a mysterious place, Black Lake Manor. He'd been to many exclusive locations, but Black Lake Manor was a legend, never open to the public. Its exact location, a closely guarded secret out here. Without a car, getting out was impossible, and he didn't even know which way to go. Besides, if they wouldn't even let him use a phone, he was sure the gates would be guarded. Liam thought of the golden pistol in Cassandra Thorne's hand. Damn it. Without her permission, he really wasn't going anywhere. Sir, we have wonderful food and drink here, Maria said, her tone placid. Anything you need, just tell me, and I will prepare for you. She then shifted gears, a warm, almost conspiratorial smile spreading across her face as she approached him. Sir, I've watched the youngness grow up. She has never brought a man home before. You're the first. Do you know how many people would kill for such an honor? Maria looked Liam up and down, her satisfaction growing by the second. Her mistress had excellent taste. A man with a healthy appetite was a good sign. He had polished off a feast meant for a small army, and now, standing tall, he radiated vitality. He was handsome, clean-cut and well-built. What more could one ask for? He and her miss would look perfect together. Maria couldn't hide her beaming approval. Liam, oblivious to her matchmaking thoughts, was about to explode. Honor, the word, was practically ripped from between his clenched teeth. Yes, of course, Maria chirped. Sir, the miss will likely be back very late tonight. You should go upstairs and rest. With that, she turned to clear the table, leaving him standing there. The entire time, he hadn't seen a single other soul in the house. He glanced at the inky blackness outside. For now, going upstairs was his only option. Without Cassandra Thorne's say, he wasn't leaving. He clenched his fists and headed for the stairs. He'd already noted the villa's layout. The main staircase led only to the second floor. At the landing, there was an elevator, but it required a key card. No surprise there. This was Black Lake Manor. After all, there were probably more floors above. His current location, the second floor, was laid out much like the first, except it contained only one room, the bedroom where he had woken up. He felt sticky with sweat just from eating. He opened the closet and saw a spare set of pajamas. Well, since I'm stuck here, might as well take a shower. Liam mused. The en-suite bathroom, taking a long, hot shower that washed away some of his tension. He changed into a fresh set of gray silk pajamas. Just as he stepped out of the bathroom, he heard the purr of an engine from downstairs. Peering through the second-floor living area's large window, he saw a woman in a white blouse and a tight black skirt get out of a car and hurry to open the back door. A moment later, a long, slender leg emerged, shot in a black high heel with a telltale red sole. It was Cassandra. She really was beautiful. Liam couldn't help but admit it. The woman who had opened the door for her was attractive enough. But the moment Cassandra appeared, the assistant faded into the background, becoming a mere NPC in her world. If only she wasn't a complete psychopath. He watched Cassandra say something to the woman, who nodded, got into the driver's seat, and drove away. Cassandra then walked toward the front door and disappeared from his view. She was coming up. He heard the sound of her heels on the staircase, the clicks, growing louder, closer. He decided he needed to talk to her, to reason with her. They were both human. Surely, if he was sincere enough, she wouldn't make things too difficult. Soon, the door to the second-floor living area opened, and Cassandra stepped inside. She was wearing another outfit he hadn't seen before, a white dress with cutouts at the waist and a high slit up the side. Her thick hair was swept up in an elegant updo, accented by a pair of dazzling diamond earrings. Her lips were painted a fiery red. She was the epitome of the cool, bewitching ice queen. Her presence was so powerful it seemed to suck the air out of the room. She just stood there and the world seemed to freeze around her. Her gaze landed on Liam, who was sitting on the sofa. She looked him up and down, a flicker of suddish in her eyes. She sniffed the air slightly and then narrowed her eyes. "You showered?" she asked. "Whether I showered or not is none of your damn business." Liam wanted to scream, but he knew he needed to negotiate his freedom